Hello, dear humanity. Welcome to Human Thesaurus podcast. I'm your host slash motherly Wish Ronquillo Peacock. JC is a film student at Mapua University in Manila, Philippines. He's an old soul with a funny streak. He loves sound mixing, old films, spicy food, and maybe me? He is also a very good voiceover enthusiast. He's my brother, 17 years younger. When we both lost our parents, I stepped up the game and raised him up practically. But he helps me a lot and he means the world to me. My synonyms for JC are sentinel as a noun, perceiving as a verb, and emerging as an adjective. Please welcome my darling brother, Jeremiah Christian.
Hello, my name is JC, same as the word happiness, as a noun brother, with the verb moving, hyper as an adjective, and I like the word eat, and I dislike the word hate.
Thank you so much, JC. Wow, you know what? 4 episodes in a row, like everybody disliked the word hate. It's amazing. I mean, I keep the right people.
Yeah, it's such a negative word, so usually used as a negative.
Yeah, that's right. So, how's school? Something happened with your thesis, or what's going on right now?
Yeah, I had to continue my thesis too. They didn't like my progress. Um, the issue was they said that my theories, my framework didn't align with my screenplay, and I had to wait 3 more months to defend it again, right? But I had like a
Mm-hmm.
easier solution. Why did I could I just change the framework, which I just did for like 30 minutes.
Wow. Wow. Can you expound who are they?
They're professors from UP Diliman. Some of them have PhDs. One of them
Mm-hmm.
is just a teacher, part timer that actually teaches in UP, FEU even, and yeah, our school. She's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a regular teacher soon, and yeah, um, I only know one out of three of them, so
Mm-hmm. So these are the panelists. So I think in Filipino terms, I just found out that in Filipino terms, we call it thesis. But internationally, I think my Western friends would understand every time I say it's a dissertation. So
mm,
I just learned about that because when I was saying, oh, yeah, JC's going through his thesis, and then Luke commented, it's like, we don't call it like that. Thesis is different for us. I was like, because when I was explaining what it is, and then I was like, what is that equivalent? And then I was looking around, and it looks like a paper or a dissertation. That's what they call it. I don't know. It's really different for us.
yeah, because we also have I think we also have some dissertation. We have our own because my advisor, which funnily enough is the same age as me, I forgot to tell
Mm.
you that. She's 25 as
Oh
well.
my God. Okay.
She's doing that thing in De La Salle. Yeah, she's taking her master's in digital film in La Salle right now. Uh,
Mm.
she's actually she had a award in UP Film Fest for her thesis film,
Mm.
and then she was invited to Cannes as well for her
Wow.
film, but she never went because she can't afford to go there.
That's sad. I mean,
Yeah,
she could have raised some funds, but I suppose it's really difficult.
yeah,
But it looks like your panelists are successful in their own ways. Yeah, I feel like the issue is really they don't understand the subject and they haven't heard of it ever before. And you're like, that's why you're bringing it to light.
yeah.
So, anyway, before we go further into that, can you explain what is your thesis? Because for me, I'm really mind blown and I've learned so much from your paper, really. When I was copy editing it. It's a beautiful word as well to
Oh,
understand.
so it's a screenplay output for thesis in understanding the death anxiety for the elderly. Or what I discovered studying this is the lack of death anxiety about for the elderly. Yes.
Mm,
When I first got into this, I was actually expecting like them being the most conscious about death anxiety, and they're just really good at hiding it.
mm,
But that wasn't the case. One of the biggest breakthroughs that I've seen, like what I read, like there was a study, like a chart where as you go older, the trend of anxiety goes lower and it peaks in the middle adult. And
mm.
funnily enough, depression actually goes up as well as you go older, but the anxiety goes lower. Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things in my research.
How does that work though? You have less anxiety but more depression.
Because when I studied this, there's a dude that's named Circelli who started on researching this first theory on elderly psychology. It's
Mm-hmm.
called disengagement theory. It was a very controversial theory about how when you go older, you disengage into society because as an old person, you think that you're useless. But this wasn't really the case. It was so controversial that it actually started a movement of researchers trying to understand old people, their psychology better. And
Mm,
their depression might come from being alone, being not understood.
right.
But the anxiety actually doesn't relate to it because
Mm,
the anxiety comes from death, right? Sometimes just sadness doesn't really correlate with being nervous, I believe.
right. So it's really like death is different than life
Yeah.
itself or what they're going through because most elderlies would have, their partners, husband or wife had passed or all of their friends are passing as well right before their eyes. So the part of themselves in the society is getting smaller.
Yeah.
So I suppose, I mean, again, your research is mostly like a generalization, but there are lots of research, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about this? Because again, I'm just learning everything from you about, I love the word gerotranscendence. What was that about?
Geotranscendence is a very recent study, even like I think it's like being more discovered like this 2010s, the era 2010s,
Wow.
from a Indian researcher. I don't know if I forgot if it was a doctor or just a
Mm-hmm.
researcher. But geotranscendence is just the idea of as you grow older, you become more wiser because of your past experiences. That's the whole summarization of that. And how I relate that to my research is
Mm.
to go beyond anxiety regarding death as you grow older is a form of geotranscendence.
Mm. Wow. I was just thinking, probably could have had, if we're in a Western country, you could have had to a double bachelor's or something, bachelor of arts in film, digital film, and BS psychology or something. Because you're marrying these things
Yeah.
together. So pretty much your thesis is this is the subject,
Yeah.
the death anxiety of the elderly, and the outcome should be a screenplay, correct?
Yeah.
Before you started this, you were thinking about this since what, 3 years ago? You've been thinking about subjects already,
Yeah.
and you've got so many, and you ended up with this one. Why did you choose this?
Um Actually, I when I chose subject for film, actually there was a lot of subjects from psychological, philosophical. I even considered political, but I did not want to get into it because it might be too controversial.
Hmm.
Even though a lot of people are doing it in school.
Hmm.
I even considered having a research on the creepiness value in horror films.
Mm.
And I ended up more in the psychological part with an output of something philosophical, with a philosophical tone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thesis in
Mm-hmm.
film are sometimes it blurs the line from a psychological research to even just a film thesis, right? Sometimes it blurs that line.
Mm.
So that's why yeah, that's regarding that. As for why I chose this one, because the reason for it is that my whole life I've been with people older than me. I'm surrounded by very old people, old to the oldest old. The closest
Yes.
age to me was actually no, that was Jaisal, my niece, our niece, and then
Your
Clark, the
niece.
other yeah, and then Clark.
All right,
Yeah,
Clark. Yes. Uh-huh.
yeah. And then other than that, oh yeah, we have more nieces from the US that visits for just
Oh
a
yeah.
whole week and then they go back
The
home.
Ormatans and Angela.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah.
But most of the time it was just like very old people and then it was like 10.
Yeah.
10 and younger. So I had to interact with them. And then at that time because they were like 60, 70, 50, I wasn't aware about the idea of death and
Mm.
how it's gonna affect me. That's why when our mom died at 2007, it never really hit me till 3 years later.
Mm.
And because I started this research just to explore that idea of how old people feel when they know they're gonna die,
Mm.
right? Like how are they gonna feel about it with the people around them as well? Do they get nervous?
Mm.
Do they get sad? Do they have like a melancholic
Yeah.
feeling, like silver line thing that I will live on with these people around me? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I started it. I want to explore that feeling. What did they feel? I
Mm.
want to show it in the screenplay.
Wow. Yeah, because you were very young. You were 9 when mom passed, and you really reacted in a way, in such a way that you're aware, but you don't understand because you were so young. And I can't even imagine going through that. I mean, it was really hard for me. I was what? I was 27, and you were only 9 at that time. So I suppose this is really your way to connect
Yeah,
to understanding as an adult now of how these things work,
yeah,
right? So far, because you've been doing your thesis and you've done so well with your research, bar the whatever your panelists are saying about it. I think it's really valuable for you as a life journey as well when you research this. What did you find out internally? What effects has this research is on you? What's your conclusion about death anxiety for the elderly that connects with your life right now and your outlook?
yeah. Like a very, 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 very big impact on me, my personality and my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because like a few years ago, I had like a peak of anxiety, like thanatophobia, right?
Yes.
It actually stopped me from made it hard for me to sleep. It made me just
Yeah.
nervous, staring on the ceiling while laying down type of nights, just having cold sweats. Now when I started this research, I have because I now have a better idea on
Mm-hmm.
what death is and how it affects people's feelings, not just the elderly. And I now know that the anxiety does get better as you go older,
Mm.
statistically speaking.
Yes.
It gave me that enlightenment, that acceptance na okay, it does get better.
Mm.
It's not the end. It's makes me yeah, it makes me feel very fresh.
That's great.
Very, very fresh.
Oh, I'm
A big impact.
Wow, I'm so proud of you. I mean, you know it. I'm so proud of you, regardless of all of these roadblocks that's happening with you right now. I mean, it's quite upsetting for you. I mean, you thought that you can pass that thesis already, but hello, panelists, zero transcendence and terror management theory and all of these things do exist if you just read JC's research.
Yeah.
Do I sound like a angry, bitter guardian or something?
That's to be expected. Yeah, like they made us submit. They made us, all of us, like I think there was 7 of us, submit our thesis proposal like 2 weeks before the defense, and they only read it like at the deliverance, like after the, yeah, after the defense. They talk to themselves, and that's where they read the paper. I don't know why, because
They don't read it beforehand. How are they supposed to ask questions?
yeah, like in the advising phase,
Hmm.
usually they want you to cut it down. They even change the way you write your thesis, because it's not more of a research heavy thesis now. It's more of a output heavy, creative
Mm.
output heavy. So you just put your creative inputs like that, your influences in the most part.
That doesn't make
And
sense.
the thing is, you can read each of these research
Mm-hmm.
an hour
Yeah,
each,
yeah.
and they didn't do that.
But it doesn't make any sense to me that they cut down on the research because I think that, anybody, even the Wes Andersons and the Quentin Tarantinos of this world, they're well researched before they get into a screenplay, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so it doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah.
And this is a good platform for us to really rant about this because I feel like if they wanted for this to be a creative heavy versus research heavy part of your subjects in school, then why are they stopping you from doing the output on your next course?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. So people who are listening, there are some inefficiencies, I think, in some universities. I know some universities are not perfect, but for me, as a guardian of someone like JC, who's trying so hard to finish and graduate from university, these inefficiencies really stop students from graduating and entering the real world where they could build their careers. Some of them, I know it makes sense for them to help them improve stuff, but these passive aggressive inefficiencies are not helping students. And yeah, I'm sounding like a PTA. Sorry, JC. Oh
Miss
my
PTA
god.
president.
Yeah, anyway, I just really wanted to rant because I really feel for you. You really work so hard with this for quite some time now. But anyway, if you move forward, what's next though?
What's next? Right now, I've actually done everything that I need to adjust based on their comments.
Mhm.
Why did they not pass me
Mhm.
this term, which I just did for like under an hour?
Okay.
Because I'm well studied. I know my paper from front to back.
So are you negotiating?
This is the issue. Our term ends on that Friday. The encoding
That's
of
crazy,
grades, the
man.
encoding of grades passing was
Yeah?
today. Is today, this morning, to the
Come
register.
on.
And then yeah, it was like Friday. The colloquium was Friday.
That's
Yeah, it
crazy.
was crazy.
That's not good. So by the way, for the listeners as well, I signed a form saying that before they started their thesis that you can't intervene as a guardian or a parent. But
That's the whole school, for the whole school thing.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I understand it because,
Yeah.
Karens would blame them for a small thing, and that's understandable that they should protect themselves, and that's fine. I understand it. But this is now crossing the line, so I have the right. I don't need to intervene. I don't even need to intervene. What I needed to do is give a very good feedback, like a hefty feedback from a parent.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I have something to say, and I'm going to say it, and in a very nice way. It has to be I'm about to say constructive and destructive at the same time. But anyway, um, just a constructive feedback for the dean to
Yeah.
take this on, because ultimately for me, at least I'm outspoken. How about other parents or other students who are struggling, especially during the pandemic? They can't
Yeah.
have full-time jobs while they're studying, and you guys are in a bigger struggle because you haven't been in school face to face for the past 2 years. It's just all of these factors. So it's
Yeah.
just really hurting the students if everything is last minute and panelists don't care enough to read all the hard work of their students before they go into presentation. It's just not right.
Yeah, tell
I
it.
You tell them. Yeah. But anyway, so when you move forward, when you provide a screenplay, how do you want it? What's your angle?
Well, I'm just gonna proceed with how my screenplay is written is like a family tree, like the whole
Mm-hmm.
ancestral house with a whole family, and then there's this 80-year-old man
Mm-hmm.
who just suddenly comes out of nowhere and then just goes home because he left the house for like a very long time.
Oh.
I paralleled it with me and my dad, our dad.
Mm-hmm.
You'll later on find out in the story that this old man has had a granddaughter, but it's like an adopted granddaughter,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of simulate how me and my dad were before. My dad was 60, I was like 10, 11,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
We were alone at home.
Yes.
Because a lot of the details in the story are like spoilery,
Okay.
because I'm dealing with two perspectives
Mm-hmm.
in one location in two different timelines. At
Wow.
the same time, these two protagonists are recounting, like remembering or showing in their perspective how did the other family members die. So it's a flashback within a flashback with two
Wow.
different perspectives. And then I made the old man into like a former artist,
Mm.
an artist, and that's why his perspective, like how he remembers the deaths of his family members, is like more of a creative imagination or dramatization.
Mm.
And then the granddaughter, how she imagines how they die, which is going to be shown on screen, more of a down to earth or rather realistic, a realistic presentation.
Mm.
For example, this old man, he is remembering the death of his niece, who died at 5, got kidnapped, and then he remembers it as like the kid was got lost,
Mm.
got separated from the dad in a wet market, palengke,
Mm.
and then he's trying to imagine the perspective of the kid. So the kid goes crosses the street, but the street is just like full of Thomas the Tank Engine, balloons,
Wow. Oh
floats,
yeah, yeah.
and then she's crossing the street, and then she ends up in a parade. Everybody's smiling at her, but that's just the imagination. And then she
Right.
just got dragged into a back of the van like that. So that's just like the reimagining, the dramatization. I
Mm.
got that inspiration from the film Big Fish by who was the Pirates of the Caribbean director again?
Oh my gosh.
uh,
Let's Google it. Big fish. Big. Oh my god, it's a restaurant. Wait, big fish
Big Fish
movie.
Restaurant, Big Fish film. It's Tim Burton.
Timbers.
Because
Okay.
yeah, that's one of my biggest inspirations. Like Tim Burton, Big
Mm.
Fish. It was
Okay.
based from a book as well. The Big Fish is just like a father
Yep.
and his son. The son doesn't realizes he's now an adult. He's gonna get married. He's gonna have a kid.
Mm.
He's married and he's gonna have a kid. He realizes that he doesn't really know his father all too well,
Oh.
because how the father is telling his own stories is a very creative way. It's like a storybook telling about his story, like how
Mm-mm.
the dad talked about how his son was born as him
Yeah.
fishing for a big ass catfish.
Yeah.
For a big catfish, and then he got the fish. He found the ring. The fish ate his ring, and then he goes to the hospital to see his wife,
Mm.
the mother, and then just squeezed the son out, and then got flung into the hallways of the hospital, and then he had to catch him. But in reality, when him figuring out the reality of the story is that when he was born, the father was not really there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
father was working, was busy.
Yeah.
So there was like a question at the end of the story is that, do you really want to find out? Because reality is not interesting, and you should
Mm.
just take it as how your father told it to you.
That's beautiful, isn't it? I need to watch that again because when you're
Yeah,
retelling the story, it reminded me when I watched it, but I was young when I watched it. It was in 2003.
yeah.
So, I'm not that young. I was already 23 then. But anyway, it's just like I still have a different perspective then. But when you're telling me this now and in parallel with how you make your screenplay very parallel, I really love that. And this is what I love about your mind. You're so creative as well. And I just heard from my other friend on my other episode that I am very creative. But I'm so glad that you are too, and you're even better than me because I also learned from you, and it's just marvelous. So I really hope we can get this sorted out for you
Yeah.
because um, there's so much to offer for you to offer the film industry. And so moving forward,
Yeah.
what's your aspirations when you graduate?
Um, I want to explore more on the side of editing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's another type of storytelling. It's You're playing around other people's stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playing around other people's stories, other people's visuals, other people's audio, and they're telling your own story using other people's medium. I think that's a very unique way of creating a story.
Mm.
Creating a story through other people's story and work, right?
Beautiful. Yep.
It's not like piracy. It's not like piracy. They pay you to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, yeah, yeah. Because there's like that auteur theory, right, where it's being argued who's the in film who is the creative, who is the man in charge. Is it the writer or the director? Some people don't want to argue and just like I forgot the director for Pulp Fiction. He
Quentin
likes writing and
Tarantino.
directing. Yes, he likes writing and directing, right?
Yes.
But nobody talks about the editor. The editor has his or her story to tell
Yes.
using these two things, even.
But you're looking at
Yeah,
it differently than me. It's the other way around for me. You told me a very valuable lesson. When I write way out there scripts, stories,
yeah,
and they're mostly effed up. And really effed up in the head all of my stories, and then during the execution, especially when it's a competition, it gets simplified or shortened, or the interpretation of the director is different than what I see in my head. And that kind of hurts,
yeah.
but at the same time, you told me one thing. You told me something so good the other time, like a few months last year, like being a writer is the saddest part.
It's.
What is it?
I think it's along the lines of the saddest part of the creative process.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
like
forgot.
yeah,
Yeah.
you said something. I wrote it somewhere. I need to find that notebook and put it in my show notes. You told me something like that, and then I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that is so true." Because so that's why I suppose like for the likes of Quentin Tarantino, he cares so much about his research and his vision that he doesn't want anyone to touch it. He'd rather write and direct it. And then you're telling me right now that there's also a story for the editor, because the editor is the one who's going to interpret all of these things. So now you're giving me another different layer of knowledge here, because again, as a script writer, it's not just about how the director is interpreting my screenplay.
Yeah.
It's also like how the editor is going to edit the director's vision of what I've written.
Yeah. And learning from OGT, everything's more independent than I thought. Like even in shooting, the creative side is doing their own thing, and the director has his own team. They're talking to themselves. The sound is like they only talk to each other at pre-production, and like like kind of rarely in the filming process. Even they don't talk much because
Really?
everything's so established already. If it's very organized, it's like that. They don't talk
Oh.
that much, especially if the director's not there. Which in the case of like commercial video, the director's
Yeah?
most likely not there.
Okay, so an organized production begins with a pre-production
Yeah.
that's well thought of and organized. So when you do your job, when you do the execution, you can work independently of each other. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And then so pre-production and then production and then post-prod, it's really mostly depending on the editor, because he's got the files from the sound and the soundtrack and the production cut and all of these things.
Yeah.
Right? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Okay.
There's even something we call like reels. So when filming, for example, like a 30-minute short film up to like a feature film, full length, we have these things called reels, which is like just a divided parts of the film. So we just, for example, reel 1 is like the first 15 minutes. So it's divided into parts just for the director to say pick lock. If the director says pick lock, that's it. You're not allowed to, the editor is not allowed to change it in any way, shape or form anymore, so that the music can come in, more of the sound effects come in, right? And everything else. And that's what you show to the producers, the client, or the investor.
Pick lock is in production or post-production?
Post-production. Pick lock clearly is just shortened for picture lock.
So pretty much, okay, this entire 15-minute scene, that's, if I say pick lock, nobody can touch it.
Yeah.
But that's only on the visual, or that involves the sounds and everything else? Or it's just a picture?
Just the editing part. It's just the video and then just like the dialogue. Because if you because that's when the online edit comes in. Because we have two types of editing: the offline and the online. The offline is the dude that assembles everything.
Okay.
Just like Legos.
Yep.
So that's like the whole sequences. And then the online editing is like visual effects, text, like other effects, like everything else, like 3D even.
Yeah.
So when you pick lock an offline edit, if it's not pick locked yet, the online cannot do anything. The music cannot do anything. The scorer, because if you change the editing, everybody has to start again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially the music. The music.
Oh gosh.
Especially if it's like some classical sound as well. But the thing is, the pick lock rule can be broken. The reason the person mostly responsible for that is usually the client and the producers who just decided late na never mind. Let's do it again. Which wastes everybody's time.
Oh, and that happens mostly in the creative world.
Yeah.
There's always this one difficult person that will make your life hell, and you have to do everything all over again.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much for you in your future, which is close. So there's a setback, but I think that's another part of adulting, Jace, that there are setbacks, and it's the biggest lesson there is how you're going to pick yourself up, or how you're going to solve the problem. So that's part of it. It's really like getting back up and find some solutions. one of the lessons that I've learned is from my first boss, Kim, if you can remember
Ah,
her.
yes.
So there's no way but up.
Mm.
So that's always like pick yourself up when there's a setback. And it's fine to feel like, oh, I don't want to eat, I don't want to sleep, it's so annoying, or I just wanted to sleep it off. And that's great because you're only human, but at some point get back up,
Yeah.
and find something. So maybe there's still a way to negotiate or something, but I leave it up to you because I need to remember that you're an adult now, and
Yeah.
I have to take a step back sometimes. Not all the time,
Yeah.
just sometimes.
But I learned a really valuable lesson here,
Which is?
when I'm because our presentation for the colloquium and even the thesis defense is gonna be recorded. It should be pre-recorded, maximum 10 minutes. I'm going to make it so clear and bite-sized that it's impossible to not understand.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that you pick up something really, really good to improve on. That's good observation.
Yeah.
So coming from all of this as well, like you're studying, like, can you explain, like, how do you feel that you haven't been in a physical university studying this past 2 years?
Actually, I'm one of the people who actually had an easier time when it's online because I'm a very you call it hermit type of person.
Yeah, we are hermits, you and I.
So I benefited from it, and I'm just indifferent. I'm indifferent. It just cuts down the possibility of getting affected by crime, commute accidents. Just cutting down the commute part. Yeah, that's what I'm thankful for. Yeah, but I do agree that there's some good things that come with physical learning in a classroom, right? But my track is either writing or editing, writing and editing. So it's a very very homebound occupation.
That's right.
So it's not that different from what I'm gonna do in the future.
That's right. Can you give me a sample of your VO? Can you give us a demo?
Give me a character.
You have different characters. I don't know.
It's hard without a script. So
find something random on your computer right now.
Oh yeah, how about the
Can't wait for that suspect behind the door.
something like that?
Wow, is that you?
No, that was the demons behind me.
Wow, that's freaking good. Can you do another one? Now I'm so entertained.
Wait, let me think.
Read something random as well, so it's gonna be funny.
How about this? Yeah, I'm finding a good sentence here. I'm looking at Discord. I'm reading a random sentence that's not personal.
No, I want. No, read something personal.
No, it's very political right now because of the upcoming elections.
Not political. We're not getting into that. Which Discord channel are you on?
They're very personal, like with my friends.
Find something. Say someone's secret on your Discord in a weird voice.
In a weird voice.
Hello, my name's JC.
I love. You're so good, man.
Hello, let me stop Discord.
There's some short. Yeah. Because just the heat of the Philippine news, and so people are like judging stuff right now.
Wow. Yeah.
The state of the Philippines right now. I'm gonna send you some images later. It's a lot of controversial stuff going on.
Yes, please. That would be awesome.
Off the record stuff.
Yeah, off the record stuff. Jace, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Yes.
It's so good to catch up with you while everybody's listening to us, to our normal conversations.
Yeah.
So in closing, what's the word that you can impart to our listeners? Word or a phrase, and you can expound on it.
When you fail, when you are demotivated, sometimes rage rage is the best motivator.
Wow.
and that's what I did, like this thesis colloquium. I was filled with rage, and it really motivated me to write for an hour straight. Like, yeah.
Like a demon.
Sometimes your demons can motivate you if used properly.
I like that. I like that. I'm like that. I'm like that. When I'm angry, when I'm not in the mood, I write my poetry. And it's the loveliest poetry I could ever write. But
Oh.
nobody would ever know that I'm angry while I'm writing them.
Oh yeah. How about this? I can phrase it like this.
Okay.
You can use your demons for good.
Wow.
Right?
I like this. I like this. This is your generation. I love this. So with the way you're thinking, sometimes, when I meet people your age who had this like radical thinking of negative to positive, I feel that the kids will be all right. Like, I'm not worried about the future. Like, you are an anti-TikToker.
Yeah.
Like, you can affect people in a different way. Like, you have this and you have that. It's not, you have this, I cancel you with that,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
From this episode, one of the most important words about life is enlightenment. It is defined as the state of having knowledge or understanding. Nikola Tesla, an inventor, quoted, "It is paradoxical yet true to say that the more we know, the more ignorant we become in the absolute sense, for it is only through enlightenment that we become conscious of our limitations." Enlightenment is the same as the words understanding, erudition, wisdom, refinement, development, sophistication, awareness. Further understanding yourself and everybody and everything around you gives you an open heart. That means that you're gonna see things a little bit clearer and more differently than anything that holds you back and then anything that you perceive. It will open up a different world where you can be more accepting of different ideas and different facets of life. I hope you love eavesdropping. You should start thinking about your synonyms. What are they? Thank you for listening to Human Thesaurus podcast. Please rate and subscribe and follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Your support means a great deal for me to continue this podcast. Join me again next week for another episode. I'm your host, Wish Ronquillo Peacock. Have a fantastic day and thanks for listening.